In the dim darkness of the Fu Jingshan Hotel, holding Ji Yunyan tightly in his arms, he looked at the face of the girl who was once his every familing after 3 years of not seeing her again. Lips moved and called her name Ji Yunyan, then bent down to kiss her lips. Ji Yunyan looked at him, as if the past 3 years could not fade his image in her heart. The wine glass on the table fell to the ground with a clatter. He pushed her to the bed, looking at her as if he wanted to keep family's moment forever, the moment she was his. Two people who seemed unable to meet Lai Yao were now together again. Ji Yunyan's eyes filled with tears, she had no other choice. The next morning, Fu Jingshan slowly opened his eyes. His mind not yet awake, seeing the girl in front of him, he was a little surprised is that Ji Yunyan adjusted her messy dress, turned around to look at him. I didn't expect that after 3 years of breaking up, Mr. Fu still remembers my name, it's such an honor for me. Jingshan didn't look at her, recalling the events of 3 years ago when she left him. There was a slight disappointment in his heart as he asked her, "Is family's how you lose your dignity? Still resorting to such despicable tactics like drugging someone?" Ji Yunyan just smiled. "If Mr. Fu said I lost my dignity, then is my request now considered too much?" Fu Jingshan was angry and shouted Ji Yunyan, but the girl in front of him still did not stop. "If Mr. Fu does not agree, then I will call the police now. I remember recently Fu family is having a merger overseas. If Master Fu's reputation is ruined, what will happen to Fu family?" Jingshan's hand clenched tightly to hold back his anger, then he asked her, "What do you want?" Ji Yunyan did not hesitate to make a request. "I just returned home and need money to spend in many places. I want 1,000 inch. Fu Jingshan's eyes became gulled. "Is family's the girl you used to love?" He told Ji Yunyan he would agree to give her the money. Then signed a check and handed it to her, reminding her, "Once it's done, you understand, right? You have no right to bear my children." Ji Yunyan took the check and replied, "Of course." Fu Jingshan put on his guard. Before leaving, he didn't forget to warn her, "Remember your promise." Then there was the sound of a loud door closing next to Ji Yunyan's ear. As he left, Ji Yunyan turned back to harsh reality, clutching the check in her hand, feeling utterly helpless. Suddenly, Ji Yunyan's phone rang. The voice on the other end hastily asked her, "Ji Yunyan, did you get the money? Your brother's surgery can't be delayed any longer." Ji Yunyan replied, "I got it. I'll go to the hospital right away." Ji Yunyan's father sighed heavily. "After the incident at the Gumpenny, your sister's whereabouts are unclear, and your mother is heartbroken after learning about your brother's broken leg due to alcohol intoxication. She's lying in bed, needing oxygen. If not for all families, I wouldn't have called you back from abroad and certainly wouldn't have let you go with Jingshan." Mr. Ji Yu wiped away the tears on his anguished face, for so many unfortunate events had befallen the Ji Yu family lately. He said to Ji Yunyan, "Wasn't it 3 years ago that you and Fu Jingshan were deeply in love? If he could lend a hand to the Gumpenny, it would be wonderful." Ji Yunyan hurriedly interrupted him, saying, "I'll familink of a solution for Gu's matters." Ji Yunyan looked at the check that she had just wrinkled, hoping family's 1,000 times can help the Ji Yu family last a little longer is just hope that will always go against expectations, family's 1,000 times for the chain. Gu's broken finances are like salt thrown into the sea, not absorbing any familing. Ji Yunyan read the debt collection messages from the bank and her heart was on fire. Looking up, she saw herself standing in front of a spacious, modern house. She remembered 3 years ago, and in family's same place, Fu Jingshan held hands. Her and said, "Families will be our Lai Ya from now on." Jingshan put Ji Yunyan's hand on the machine on the door, and very quickly there was a sound of whoosh. "Your fingerprint has been saved." Ji Yunyan accidentally put her hand on that machine again. The machine said, "There is a fingerprint error, please re-identify." Ji Yunyan pulled her hand back, then heartbroken and gull-lapsed, "That's right, it's you. Is the person who said before that he would cut off all contact. Now who do you blame?" Suddenly, a car light shined directly on her face. Ji Yunyan turned around and saw the familiar figure that she had been longing for every night, Fu Jingshan, 4 eyes looking at each other without knowing what to say. She and he are close to each other, right in front of each other, but are miles apart. The atmosphere was awkward. Ji Yunyan had to open her mouth first. "Are you home?" Fu Jingshan didn't say any familing but walked past her, Ji Yunyan grabbed his shirt and pulled him back. Fu Jingshan, can you help me? Jingshan turned back to look at her and laughed mockingly. What? Is that 1,000 still not enough? Ms. Gu's buying and selling is like an investment of 4 words. Ji Yunyan ignored his attitude. She said that 3 years ago she was the one at fault with him. It had no family to do with her parents. Over the years you've always been very nice to me. Can you help them once? Suddenly her chin was squeezed by someone. She didn't feel any pain anymore. Fu Jingshan looked into her eyes and said, that year you brought me such great humiliation and yet the Ji Yu family was still able to peaceful and unharmed. Why do you familink? I have done my best for the Ji Yu family. Do you have no right to ask me anymore or do you want to gum one more night? Fu Jingshan looked at her and smiled mockingly. Ji Yunyan no longer had any self-respect for herself. She trembled and told him, if Mr. Fu agrees to support my family, I can do any familing. Fu Jingshan was a little angry and pushed her face away, then turned around and left. Do you agree? It's a pity I'm afraid of getting dirty. Get out of my sight, I don't want to see you again. There was a loud bang of the door closing. Ji Yunyan was blocked outside. Suddenly her phone rang again. It was her father's phone calling to announce if Ji Yunyan can't fill the hole next Monday, the company will have to declare bankruptcy. Ji Yunyan trembled then told her father, don't worry, Dad, I will bring you money. Family's weak. Ji Yunyan held the phone tightly in her hand. She had to give it to her. Just make a decision, you can't hesitate anymore. Familinking, so she dialed a phone number, which was the number of Dr. Lam, the Department of Obstetrics and Gynecology. The next morning at Fu Corporation, Ji Yunyan approached the receptionist desk and said, I'd like to meet Mr. Fu, please. Could you announce my presence? I'm Ji Yunyan. When the receptionist heard that, she was surprised. She had heard everyone in the company say that General Fu loved the Ji Yu family's familiard aunt to the gore. 3 years ago, the marriage was cancelled and then he ran away abroad with another man. Then General Fu's personality changed completely. Unexpectedly it was family's girl. The receptionist happily called to inform her. Ji Yunyan suddenly felt dizzy. Could it be that you caught a cold yesterday? Suddenly feeling such a headache, the receptionist heard from the other end of the line, Mr. Fu says he doesn't want to meet. Find some excuse to get her out. Reluctantly, the receptionist informed Ji Yunyan, I'm sorry, Miss Ji Yu, Mr. Fu is in a meeting and doesn't have time to see you today. Ji Yunyan said it was fine and decided to wait there. She staggered away, and then, she remembered no familing as she gull-lapsed to the ground. In the conference room, Jingshan had been feeling uneasy since learning that Ji Yunyan was waiting downstairs. He occasionally glanced at his watch but resolved not to meet her. Suddenly, his secretary entered, whispering, Mr. Fu, then quietly added, Miss Ji Yu fainted downstairs. Jingshan hurriedly rushed out. The secretary announced to everyone, Mr. Fu has urgent matters to attend to. The meeting ends here. Meanwhile, Ji Yunyan remained unconscious. The receptionist shook her, calling her name, Miss Ji Yu, wake up quickly. Suddenly, a man's voice intervened, don't touch her. Jingshan stepped forward, instructing the receptionist to stand up. He looked at Ji Yunyan's pale face and couldn't help but feel sad. Then Fu Jingshan picked her up. He couldn't imagine why she was so skinny. He took her to a room, used a towel to wipe her face, and looking at her in such a close position made Jingshan's heart flutter. Just like a few years ago, her beauty truly made Jingshan shake. He was fascinated unexpectedly. Ji Yunyan regained consciousness and called out to him, Jingshan. He coldly responded, switching to blackmail now? But your life or death doesn't matter to me. Ji Yunyan handed him a prenatal checkup paper, 4 weeks pregnant. Jingshan, you can gunt the time to verify. Jingshan furrowed his brows at the document. You're resorting to tricks now? Regardless, it's not the first time. What do you want family's time? Ji Yunyan got straight to the point. The Ji Yu Corporation is currently facing financial difficulties. In family's city, only you can help the Ji Yu family. Jingshan, let's get married. She spoke with difficulty, not only because she was unwell but also because she knew she didn't deserve to utter such words. Fu Jingshan grabbed her wrist tightly and asked, On what basis do you familink I will agree with you? Ji Yunyan told him, the Fu family is the most prominent family in Family's City. Compared to the benefits, it's even better. Pay more attention to reputation. Once the unmarried pregnancy is revealed, for the Fu family it will be a huge scandal. Mr. Fu may not mind, but what about Mr. Fu? Ji Yunyan quickly looked at him with urgent eyes. As long as Fu family is willing to save the Ji Yu family, Ji Yunyan will later deduct 50% of her annual profit as a thank you. After giving birth, I will naturally divorce you, and telling the outside world that I am divorcing for personal reasons will not affect Fu family even half of it. Jing Shun grabbed her shoulder with an angry look. Open your mouth and it's Fu family. Fu family, you're very good at familinking for me. Ji Yunyan just smiled and asked him, so what do you mean by Fu? Jing Shun suppressed his anger. Okay, I will do as you wish. But you must know that the reason I married you is only because of the child in your womb, so your name will not be included in the public marriage news to the outside world. Ji Yunyan didn't know whether to be happy or sad at family's moment. I understand, I can understand it myself. He and she came together in family's situation was some familing she never wanted. Even though in her heart there was always only him, Ji Yunyan secretly thought, he bows his head for family's child, no matter who the child's mother is, it doesn't matter. Fu Jingshun looked at his watch and said to Ji Yunyan, now you're going to get a marriage certificate with me. Ji Yunyan Golden Tea helped but be surprised, so fast? Forget it, don't let the night be too long and have too many dreams. She hurried to follow him, saying as they walked, I have the household registration book at home, we can pick it up on the way to the civil office. He urged her, then let's go. Arriving at the civil affairs department, Ji Yunyan was a bit stunned. She didn't know how many times she had imagined sweet scenes of their wedding day. Feeling blissful in his arms, telling him that after they signed the papers, she would invite friends over for a 3-day celebration. Jing Shun looked at her with indulgence. After signing the papers, you don't want to play with your husband but want to party with friends? Ji Yunyan hugged his face, acting guy, so after the congratulations, you'll party with me, right? Just the two of us, but I didn't expect that when Family's Day came, the two of them would big 'em like families. Ji Yunyan and Jing Shun stood side by side to take their wedding registration photo. One stood stiffly, the other gulled and distant, prompting the photographer to remind them, get closer, bride gem closer to the groom. Surprisingly, Jing Shun pulled Ji Yunyan closer, wrapping his arm around her shoulders, and then told the photographer, take the picture. After it was done, the photographer exclaimed, perfect. Wishing the bride and groom a lifetime of happiness. After the photo session, Jing Shun informed Ji Yunyan, later, after families, I have to go to France for work. I'll arrange for a driver to take you back to Nam Ton Villa. You'll stay there from now on. I've already sorted out the financial intervention and Ji Yuga operation. It'll be resolved in a day or two. Ji Yunyan was about to say some familing to him, her hand raised in the air before retracting it. Jing Shun's assistant offered, Madam, let me take you back to Nam Ton Villa. Back at home, Ji Yunyan cleaned herself up after a long day. She still Golden Tea believe what had happened, she and he were now married. Suddenly, she saw a man smoking with his back turned to her. She was a bit surprised and asked, didn't you say you were going on a business trip? Fu Jingshun Gouldly replied temporarily cancel, he did not want the first day of their marriage to leave her alone in family's villa. Jingshun's eyes stared at Ji Yunyan. The body of a girl who had just finished befamiling was very seductive, especially for someone as beautiful as her. Ji Yunyan walked past him and said, I'm a little tired, I'll go to bed first, she said. Lie down on the bed, close your eyes and rest. Suddenly a hand gently touched her hair. Jing Shun hugged Ji Yunyan from behind, causing her to panic a bit. He told her don't forget your current identity, then leaned down to kiss her. On her neck, Ji Yunyan struggled and shouted, Fu Jingshun, let me go first, don't touch me. Jingshun got a little crazy and bit her neck with a red bite, don't let me touch you, then let anyone touch it. Gui Yang, he Golden Tea keep calm and shouted at her, he didn't understand if he was jealous right now or not. Fu Jingshun was angry and shouted at Ji Yunyan, so who do you let touch Gui Yang? Ji Yunyan's entire body hurt and her mouth stuttered. No, it has no familing to do with him, it's because of me. Fu Jingshan could no longer keep calm. His hand lost control and grabbed her. Isn't 3 years in Seattle with Gui Yang enough? Returning home, you still maintain your body like a pearl for him, right? Tears left the gurner of Ji Yunyan's eyes. The name Gui Yang she tried to avoid. There was no way to ignore his existence. When they were in high school, Gui Yang and Fu Jingshan, along with her brother Ji Yuton, were the hottest characters at school. Fu Jingshan always gets attention from the girls in school because of his handsomeness. Only Ji Yunyan doesn't see that. She said to the girl next to her, "What good is Fu Jingshan? Why can't I find it?" My friend Golden Tea helped but say. Ji Yunyan, are you like that because you can't eat grapes, so you call them sour? Ji Yunyan came up with a good trick. Isn't he just a Fu Jingshan? You wait and see, in 3 months I will make him obediently fall into my arms. Because of family's bet, Ji Yunyan created random meetings, whining and harassment. Finally being together with Fu Jingshan, it was also a wonderful, happy, warmest time. Until Fu Jingshan proposed to her. Ji Yunyan, are you willing to bigam Mrs. Fu? Suddenly one day Fu Jingshan frantically asked Ji Yunyan why. Ji Yunyan, why do you have to leave me? Do you already love him? Jingshan was in pain as he said these words. Ji Yunyan avoided looking into his eyes. Yes, the person I have always liked is still Mr. Gui Yang. Returning to the present, at family's time Fu Jingshan was still angry and strangled Ji Yunyan, causing her pain beyond words. He hated her as if he wanted to crush every familing. So when you quit smoking me, when you touching me, why didn't you familink to protect yourself for Gui Yang? Ji Yunyan looked at her brother sadly and wanted to tell him that she and Gui Yang had no familing. That 3 years in Seattle had no familing. But Fu Jingshan said he didn't want to hear their story, and was even less interested in touching familings that other people had touched. Then he gladly left. Ji Yunyan sat there looking at him with tears falling continuously. The little girl curled up as if she was alone in family's world. Because she was so tired, Ji Yunyan fell asleep without knowing it. Suddenly the phone rang. Ji Yunyan quickly picked up the phone, and the voice on the other end rushed to say, "Miss Ji Yu, there's a big issue. Chairman Zhao from Zhao Corporation, Zhao Wenbei, suddenly called to inform us that they won't supply essential oils to us anymore." Ji Yunyan responded, "Please help me schedule a meeting with Zhao Wenbei as soon as possible, and assist me in investigating other high-quality essential oil suppliers in the industry." As soon as the call ended, Ji Yunyan was lost in thought. Zhao Corporation supplies vegetable oils, while Ji Corporation handles perfume production. We've been in harmonious cooperation for 10 years. Why would Zhao Wenbei suddenly turn against us? Shortly after, her secretary called to inform her, Zhao Wenbei's morning schedule is fully booked, but he has a lunch appointment with his daughter, so you can go by then. Ji Yunyan replied, "I'll be there on time. Please provide me with the address." Jingshan responded indifferently, "Okay," his gaze following her as she left. He didn't want to dwell on it. Having her by his side was enough. As soon as Ji Yunyan walked out the door, she didn't expect that Zhao Man hadn't left yet and was standing there waiting for her. As soon as she saw Ji Yunyan, she started to scold her. "Ji Yunyan, I didn't expect that 3 years later, she's still so shameless. Life and death must cling to Mr. Fu and not let go. You are no longer the noble and noble Ji Yunyan. Mr. Fu probably doesn't need you anymore." Ji Yunyan just smiled mockingly. "Before, I didn't really understand the meaning of the tiger falling to the bottom of the earth. Dogs can also be despised. Maybe now I understand family's sentence a little better." Zhao Man raised his hand to slap Ji Yunyan. "Who are you calling a dog?" But very quickly Ji Yunyan stopped. Held her hand of "Gurs, I told you. Besides, I forgot to tell you that before I came here, I had already found a new brand to cooperate with. I originally thought I would give Zhao family a chance, but I didn't expect that you guys wouldn't appreciate it. Cooperating with Jiu family AC Gunts for 30% of Zhao family's profits. Losing Jiu family and Zhao family will surely suffer a big loss. The taste of your stick hitting Mr. Zhao's back, just slowly feel it." Ji Yunyan turned and left. Zhao Man stood and watched with anger in his heart. Ji Yunyan, just wait and see. Li Ya, Ji Yunyan's senior secretary at Jiu Corporation, waited for Ji Yunyan outside the car. When she approached, Li Ya asked, "Is Miss Jiu going to meet with the new essential oil brand for our company?" However, Ji Yunyan replied, let's go to the hospital first. At the hospital, Ji Yunyan's father was sitting in the hallway, his expression unable to hide his worry. Your brother is now a disabled person. Dad is too useless to protect you three brothers well. There is also the mother of the children. The investment capital in Jiyu family was stopped and I had no choice but to sell my child to Mr. Fu. Ji Yunyan took the cigarette from her father's hand and comforted him. Dad, don't smoke anymore, I will find a good treatment method best for my brother. Jiyu family's matter can also be resolved by Fu Jingshun. Mr. Jiyu Golden Tea helped but wonder and asked his daughter, Ji Yunyan, tell me, how did you and Uncle Fu get married? That year, because of you leaving. He was so angry that he rioted. Ji Yunyan was heartbroken and told the truth to his father. I told him I was pregnant. Mr. Jiyu looked at her in surprise. Ji Yunyan, is Dad's fault? Ji Yunyan just shook her head. Dad, don't say that. Mr. Jiyu said to his daughter, Ji Yunyan, I can see that you and Uncle Fu still love each other. If we really had children, maybe we would get back together again. If Fu finds out the truth, our family will be finished. Ji Yunyan remained silent, unsure of what to say. She wasn't even sure herself, but even the thought of Fu Jingshun gumming near her made her uncomfortable, let alone the idea of having a child. That time, if she hadn't closed her eyes and pretended, she wouldn't have been able to get close to Fu Jingshun. She had to secretly take aphrodisiacs to prevent herself from resisting him. Therefore, she truly Golden Tea remember what happened that night. Ji Yunyan stood up and reassured her father, Father, don't worry. I've already thought it through. The Gumpenny still has matters to handle, so I'll go first. Outside, Lai Wei informed her. I've scheduled the meeting with the new essential oil Gumpenny for you. We can negotiate cooperation at any time. Ji Yunyan asked Lai Wei, which Gumpenny is it? It's Jing Gurparation, Lai Wei replied. Ji Yunyan froze at the mention of Jing Gurparation. Lai Wei, noticing her uneasy expression, asked, Miss Ji, you don't look well. Is there a problem? Ji Yunyan said, it's no family. It's just that the chairman of Jing Gurparation now is Jing Shui, and I have some resentment towards him. During high school, my classmates told me that Jing Shui got someone pregnant and then behaved promiscuously, so I sneaked into the boys' dormitory and poured pepper into his pants. But at that time, I truly feared no family. Inside the house, he was affectionate and indulgent towards me, and there was also Fu Jingshun. If I had known that one day I would have to bow down to Jing Shui, I wouldn't have been so rebellious back then, Ji Yunyan said. With no other choice left, she turned to Lai Wei and said, Contact Jing Shui. I need to meet him. Arriving at the prearranged location, Ji Yunyan said to Jing Shui, I heard that young Master Jing has a batch of essential oils in his hand. Young Master Jing just bid. Jing Shui shook the glass of wine in her hand, then looked at Ji Yunyan and smiled. The famous Jiyu family also needs my help one day? I'm afraid I heard wrong. Ji Yunyan poured a glass of wine, his tone as gentle as possible. Before, it was because I was young and didn't understand families. Family's glass of wine is like me apologizing to you. Mr. Jing, stop comparing calculations with me. Jing Shui still sat still to see what she was going to do next. Ji Yunyan brought the glass of wine to her mouth to drink it all. Jing Shui smiled mysteriously. He stood up and leaned closer. Ji Yunyan said, but people like me like to hold grudges and remember hatred. One drink, I'm afraid, will hardly calm my anger. Jing Shui brought his hand to her mouth, gently wiping away the remaining drops of wine. Later I have a party to attend. If Ms. Jiyu can gem with me, I can familink about cooperation. How do you feel? Ji Yunyan accepted without familinking. I'll go back and change clothes first, but Jing Shui said already prepared for you. Ji Yunyan was engrossed in the thought of Jing Shui has prepared in advance. I don't know what other tricks she will face later, but because of the essential oils she Golden Tea care that much. She looked at Jing Shui and said, then I'm bothering Mr. Jing. In the evening as scheduled, Jing Shui and Ji Yunyan sat in a luxury car to go to the party. When getting off the bus, Jing Shui gallantly opened the door to invite Ji Yunyan to get out. Ji Yunyan took Jing Shui's arm and walked away. He looked at her attentively with satisfaction. You are very beautiful today. As soon as the two of them entered the party, someone recognized her. Ji Yunyan has returned from abroad. Since when did she seduce Jing? Family's girl is really not simple. Quickly look, Mr. Fu is here. Ji Yunyan was a bit startled. Is Fu Jingshan also coming here? She heard someone mention to her at the party, Mr. Fu is here. Ji Yunyan looks beautiful. Now Ji family is in a mess. She also has to compensate for money that no one needs anymore. Ji Yunyan was a little scared and walked faster. Jing Shui looked at her and smiled mischievously. What's the hurry? I also have to go and say hello to Fu. Ji Yunyan raised her eyes and asked him, is your purpose Fu Jingshan? Jing Shui gently touched Ji Yunyan's beautiful face. A girl who is both smart and beautiful, it's really impossible not to like. Fu Jingshan saw families seen from afar. His gold eyes looked towards Ji Yunyan. Jing Shui said hello first with a provocative look. What a coincidence. Mr. Fu, he hugged Ji Yunyan's waist later. He continued, a little introduction. Families is the girl with me today, Ji Yunyan. Look at my memory, Ji Yunyan and Mr. Fu are schoolmates and don't need to be introduced. Ji Yunyan hasn't seen Mr. Fu for a long time, let's say hello. Ji Yunyan's hand loosened, then she reached forward to greet Fu Jingshan. He looked at her, trying to suppress the discomfort in his heart, and shook her hand to greet her. Then he said, there are a few friends I need to greet, and Fu Jingshan walked away. Miss Ji Yunyan watched his fading figure with a slight disappointment and said to Jing Shui, your calculations might be off, Jing. Now, as far as Fu Jingshan is concerned, I'm no family. Jing Shui said she doesn't need to be so self-conscious. A man approached to greet Jing Shui, and then a few more friends arrived, drawing his attention away from Miss Ji Yunyan. She wanted to step outside for some fresh air for a moment. Suddenly, a firm hand wrapped around her waist, causing her to startle and scream. Fu Jingshan covered her mouth with his hand, looking at her with anger and demanded, what's your relationship with Jing Shui? He applied strong pressure to her face and yelled. Speak. Miss Ji Yunyan looked at him angrily, feeling a bit panicked inside. Jing Shui and I just have a normal cooperative relationship. Zhao Wenbei no longer supplies essential oils to Ji family, so I found a new supplier. Fu Jingshan still didn't take his eyes off her for a second. He admitted that he was jealous right now. Does a normal partnership need to be like families? He gently touched Ji Yunyan's face. Today she looked so beautiful and seductive that he looked at her in bewilderment. Suddenly, Ji Yunyan heard someone talking in the next room. Now in Mr. Fu's eyes there is no Ji Yunyan at all. Just now he didn't even look at her. Men really won't appreciate a girl who lacks manners, especially one with a brother who only has one leg. Ji Yunyan Golden Tea helped but want to pass by, saying 3 words to the 2 men who were talking ill of her in the next room. But Fu Jingshan stopped her. Ji Yunyan clearly remembers your current identity. You must maintain your true identity as Mrs. Fu. I don't hope to see you and a strange man appear in places like families again. Ji Yunyan obediently listened to him. I understand. Fu Jingshan looked down at the dress she was wearing and said to her, family's outfit is so unsightly, I don't want to see it anymore. From now on, I will arrange for someone to prepare clothes for you every day. Now come back with me and change into other clothes. Ji Yunyan happily accepted. Okay, tomorrow I will return it to Jing Shui. Later, I will return it to Jing Shui will not appear before Jing's eyes again. The next day there were scraps of fabric all over the ground. Ji Yunyan picked it up and realized it was the costume that Jing Shui had prepared for her the day before. Fu Jingshan was now calmly drinking tea and escalding the dog sitting next to him. Da Wang, haven't I told you before, the habit of carrying stinky rags must be corrected immediately. Such poor quality familings are used as rags. It's not worth it. Aunt Xian clean it up, Aunt Xian mumbled as she swept away the pile of rags. Da Wang has never bitten familings like that before. Why is it like that today? Ji Yunyan was a little worried, originally planning to take the ceremonial dress and wash it today and return it to Jing Shui. Family's time, it's going to be troublesome. At Ji family corporation, Jing Shui sat across from Ji Yunyan in her office. Ji Yunyan handed Jing Shui a check and said, the outfit from yesterday was unfortunately torn by my pet dog. I apologize for families, Gunsider family's money as compensation. Jing Shui continued to gaze at her, enamored. There's no need. Giving clothes to the girl I like, I don't intend to take them back, he he said softly. Ji Yunyan felt uncomfortable with his teasing. Jing, you shouldn't joke like that, she said. Jing Shui still didn't take his eyes off Ji Yunyan. He said, recently, Ji Yu family is lacking investment money. I estimate the lowest level is nearly 20 billion to make up for the loss. I am willing to spend family's amount of money for you. Ji Yunyan clearly saw the intentions of the man sitting across from her. She asked him directly, what are the conditions for Mr. Jing to be so generous? Jing Shui looked at her and smiled. You are indeed a smart woman, I need you. It's very difficult to meet a girl I'm interested in. I really want to keep you by my side. If you want the position of young lady of the Jing family, I can give it to you. Ji Yunyan doesn't want to be involved with Jing Shui forever. Because she knows how cunning a man he is. I'm sorry, I'm not interested. I will find a way to solve Ji Yu family operations deficit without burdening you, she said. Jing Shui looked at her slyly. Or perhaps you're waiting for Fu Jingshan to come to your rescue. Ji Yunyan replied, you've seen how Fu Jingshan treats me. So even if I were with you, I wouldn't harm him. You don't need to worry about calculating with me, Jing. Jing Shui laughed loudly. You don't want to get involved with me? But it's too late. We've attended parties together. News of our wonderful night has spread everywhere now. My offer is forever valid for you. Ji Yunyan, I'm waiting for you to find me. After speaking, Jing Shui quickly walked out and left. Ji Yunyan angrily clenched his hands. What a cunning person, he is really crazy. With Fu Jingshan's personality, if he really goes crazy because of Jing Shui's story, his investment in Ji Yu family will definitely be affected. If he finds out that her belly is fake, every familing will be very unpredictable. Ji Yunyan is familing of a way, tonight she must keep Fu Jingshan in bed. In the evening, after taking a shower, Ji Yunyan deliberately waited for Jingshan to come home from work. As soon as he opened the door and walked in, she stood there waiting and greeted him. Mr. Fu, I'm home. Fu Jingshan didn't say any familing, just glanced at her and walked past her. Ji Yunyan pulled his hand back and explained, you and Jing Shui are not in a relationship like the rumors say, I've explained it to you. Fu Jingshan turned back to look at her, if I believe it, you don't need to explain. I also believe in you. If I don't believe it, no matter how many times you say it, I still won't believe it. Then he entered the room and closed the door with a bang. Ji Yunyan was blocked outside. Perhaps she had to resort to seduction. She poured a sleeping pill into her hand and then poured it into her mouth. While Jingshun was showering, Ji Yunyan deliberately placed a nightgown inside for him and changed into a very seductive nightdress herself. Jingshun Golden Tea helped but stare at her intently. As Ji Yunyan was about to leave, Jingshun grabbed her hand and pulled her back, pressing her against the bathroom wall, his voice husky as he asked, are you dressing like families to seduce me? Ji Yunyan looked up at him and said, do you have any interest in me, Fu? Jingshun leaned down to kiss her pale neck. Indeed, the drug had its effect, although she felt uncomfortable when he got too close. She endured it. Ji Yunyan resisted the physical pain when he touched her, accepting his passionate kiss. But afterward, Ji Yunyan felt uneasy, sensing that familings were not right. She asked Jingshun to stop, surprising him. After 3 years of running away with Gui Yang, no familing happened. Ji Yunyan struggled against Jingshun's worry, and he asked, aren't you comfortable? She replied, not very well. Jingshun became gentler with her, lifting her slightly, only to find Ji Yunyan's eyes tightly closed. Jingshun felt disheartened. Wasn't it to seduce me? Why are you falling asleep like families? How am I supposed to deal with families now? He looked at Ji Yunyan affectionately, then Golden Tea resist caressing her face. How could the girl he loved now belong to him again? Was he dreaming? Jingshun gently kissed her forehead, feeling like families was the moment he could be most true to himself. The truth was, he still loved her deeply. The next morning, Ji Yunyan felt regretful about the previous night but realized that the nightgown was indeed very attractive. Suddenly, the phone rang. It was Ji Yunyan's father. Ji Yunyan, you and Jingshun have been married for a while now. Bring him home for dinner, he said. Ji Yunyan felt a bit worried, fearing that Jingshun might not like it and it would put him in an awkward position. On the other end of the line, her father continued, I've noticed that your mother hasn't been in good spirits lately. Rarely does any familing make her as happy as families. Ji Yunyan assured her father, I'll figure some familing out. As soon as Ji Yunyan walked downstairs, Fu Jingshun was sitting in front of the dining table, attentively reading the newspaper. Aunt Xian looked at her and smiled kindly. Is Ji Yunyan up? Breakfast is ready, please sit down and eat. Mom doesn't. If she later sees that their relationship is gulled, I wonder how worried she will be. Suddenly Fu Jingshun leaned close to Ji Yunyan, making her look at him a little confused. With a click sound the seatbelt buckle was opened, but she thought he was planning to do some familing to her. As the car stopped, Jingshun said to her, What are you daydreaming about? We're here, get out of the car. Ji Yunyan was still flustered by what had just happened. How could she be familinging about that in broad daylight? Suddenly, Jingshun wrapped his arm around her shoulders. It had been a long time since he had been so intimate with her. Ji Yunyan's parents came out to greet them. Jingshun, Ji Yunyan, you're back? It's gulled outside, hurry inside, it's getting uncomfortably gulder these days, Ji Yunyan's mother said as she ushered them inside. Knowing that Ji Yunyan and Jingshun had returned, she had prepared a table full of her daughter's favorite dishes. Sitting at the dinner table, Mother Ji Yunyan looked at her two children with a satisfied expression, reminding her daughter, Ji Yunyan, if you and Jingshun are married in the future, you must be happy and content. Now Fu Jingshun is no longer the young boy he used to be, he has become a king who can shake family's entire city. Surely, Ji Yunyan's parents are worried that she will suffer under the hands of Fu Jingshun. Ji Yunyan wrapped her arm around him, trying to appear very happy in front of her parents. Jingshun is very good to me. The dress I'm wearing today was chosen by him for me. She looked up at him and asked, We are very happy, aren't we? Yes, Fu Jingshun cooperated smoothly with her. Seeing families seen, Ji Yunyan's parents' golden tea help but be delighted. That's good, that's good. As long as you two are happy like families, it's good. Well then, what are you waiting for? Let's eat. Ji Yunyan picked up a piece of food from the plate, then put it in Jingshun's bowl. He happily accepted it. Fortunately, Fu Jingshun had behaved very well in front of her parents. Suddenly, it started pouring rain outside. Ji Yunyan's father said to the two of them, Don't leave tonight. Stay at home for the night.